I used to think silence was just the absence of sound. Now I know it's the heaviest thing you can carry. My name is Robert. I'm 74 years old. And my daughter, Sarah, hasn't spoken to me in 12 years. For most of that time, I told myself it was her choice, her anger, her inability to forgive whatever it was I'd done wrong. But sitting here tonight in this quiet house, I finally understand it wasn't what I did. It was what I never did at all. I need to tell you how I got here, because maybe it'll help you see something I couldn't see until it was too late.
I grew up in the 1950s in a small town in Pennsylvania. My father was a factory worker. He left the house at 6 every morning and came home at 7 every night, smelling like oil and exhaustion. He never hugged me, never told me he loved me, never asked about my day. But he worked himself half to death to keep food on the table, and I respected him for it. That's what men did. They provided, they sacrificed, and love was something you showed through your paycheck, not your presence. So, when I became a father myself, in 1978, I did exactly what my father did. I got a job at an accounting firm. I worked long hours. I climbed the ladder. I bought a house in the suburbs with a big backyard and a 2-car garage. I thought I was building a good life for my family. I thought I was doing everything right. Sarah was born on a Tuesday in March. My wife, Linda, had been in labor for 14 hours, and when they finally put Sarah in my arms, I felt this overwhelming sense of responsibility. Not love, exactly, though I'm sure it was there somewhere. Mostly, I felt the weight of knowing I had to take care of this tiny person for the rest of my life. I remember thinking, I need to work harder. I need to make sure she never wants for anything. And I did. I gave Sarah everything: piano lessons when she was 6, a new bike when she was 8, her own car when she turned 16. I paid for summer camps and college tuition and her wedding. I was a good provider. I thought that's what mattered. But here's what I didn't give her. I didn't give her my time. I didn't give her my attention. I didn't give her a father who was actually there, not just physically in the house, but emotionally present in her life. I gave her everything except the one thing she actually needed, and I didn't even realize it until she was gone. When Sarah was 7 years old, she brought me a drawing she'd made at school. It was a picture of our family standing in front of our house, 3 stick figures holding hands, except in the picture, I wasn't holding anyone's hand. I was off to the side, standing alone, holding what looked like a briefcase. She was so proud of it. She held it up to me and said, "Do you like it, Daddy?" I was reading the newspaper. I glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds and said, "That's very nice, sweetheart," and went back to the sports section. She stood there for a moment, waiting for me to say something else, and when I didn't, she walked away. I didn't think about that moment again until 3 months ago when I found that drawing in a box in the attic. Looking at it now, I can see what she was trying to tell me. Even at 7 years old, she knew I wasn't really part of the family. I was just the man who paid the bills. As Sarah got older, the distance between us grew. By the time she was in high school, our conversations were limited to me asking how school was and her saying, "Fine." I'd ask if she needed money for anything, and she'd say, "No thanks." Linda would tell me I should spend more time with her. She'd say Sarah needed a father, not just a wallet. I'd get defensive. I'd say I was working to give her a better life than I had. I'd say she should be grateful. I'd say teenagers are moody and she'd grow out of it. But the truth is, I didn't know how to connect with her. I didn't know how to be anything other than what my father was. And my father was a stranger who happened to live in the same house. When Sarah went to college, I thought maybe things would get better. I thought distance would help, that we'd appreciate each other more. I helped her move into her dorm room. I carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs. I set up her desk and made sure her mini fridge was working. When it was time to leave, she hugged Linda and cried. She turned to me and held out her hand for a handshake. I shook it. I told her to study hard and call if she needed anything. Then I got in the car and drove home. Linda cried the whole way. I told her Sarah was just being independent. I told her it was a good thing. Over the next 4 years, Sarah came home less and less. Thanksgiving her freshman year, Christmas her sophomore year. By her senior year, she'd stay with friends over the holidays. She'd make excuses, too much work, too expensive to travel. I told myself it was normal. I told myself she was building her own life. But Linda knew. Linda would sit at the dinner table during the holidays, setting a place for Sarah anyway, and I'd see the sadness in her eyes. I'd tell her to stop being dramatic. I'd say Sarah was fine. But I knew Linda was right. I just didn't want to admit it. Sarah graduated with honors. We went to the ceremony. I took a few pictures. Afterward, she introduced us to her friends, and they all seemed surprised to meet me. One of them said, "Oh, I didn't know your dad was coming." Sarah just smiled and said, "Yeah, he made it." Like it was some kind of miracle, like I was a guest star in her life instead of her father. A year later, Sarah got engaged to a man named Michael. I met him twice before the wedding. He seemed fine. Steady job, good manners, loved Sarah. I told her I approved, as if my approval was something she needed. She looked at me like I'd spoken in a language she didn't understand. The wedding was in the spring. Sarah asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I said yes, of course. I bought a new suit. I practiced what I'd say if I had to give a speech. But a week before the wedding, Linda told me Sarah didn't want me to speak at the reception. She said Sarah thought it would be awkward. I was hurt, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded and told myself it was fine. On the day of the wedding, I walked Sarah down the aisle. She held my arm, but she didn't look at me. When we got to the front and the officiant asked, "Who gives this woman?" I said, "Her mother and I do." And I stepped back. I sat down next to Linda, and I watched my daughter get married. I watched her laugh and cry and dance with Michael, and with Linda, and with all her friends. At the end of the night, she came over to our table to say goodbye. She hugged Linda for a long time. She looked at me and said, "Thanks for coming, Dad." Then she left. That was the last time I saw her in person. 2 years later, Linda got sick. The doctors said it was cancer, stage 4, and there wasn't much they could do. Linda lived for 6 more months, and during that time, Sarah came home. She stayed with Linda every single day. She took leave from her job. She slept in a chair next to Linda's hospital bed. She read to her and held her hand and made her laugh, even when Linda was too weak to sit up. I was there too, but Sarah barely acknowledged me. When I'd walk into the room, she'd leave. When I'd try to talk to her, she'd say she needed to check on something. I told myself she was grieving. I told myself it wasn't about me. Linda died on a Sunday morning. Sarah was holding her hand. I was standing in the corner of the room. After Linda took her last breath, Sarah sat there crying, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how. I'd spent my whole life not knowing how. So I just stood there, useless, while my daughter said goodbye to the only parent she'd ever really had. At the funeral, Sarah gave the eulogy. She talked about how kind Linda was, how she always made time for people, how she had this gift for making everyone feel seen and loved. She told stories about Linda teaching her to bake, about Linda staying up late to help with school projects, about Linda being at every single one of her piano recitals. She cried and laughed and spoke for 15 minutes about how much her mother meant to her. She never mentioned me. After the service, I tried to talk to her. I asked if she wanted to stay at the house for a few days. She said she couldn't. I asked if we could have dinner sometime, just the two of us. She said maybe. I asked if she was angry with me. She looked at me for a long time, and I could see something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hatred, just exhaustion. She said, "Dad, I'm not angry. I'm just tired." Then she left. That was 12 years ago. I haven't seen her since. I've called her probably 60, 70 times over the years. She never answers. I leave voicemails. I tell her I'd love to hear from her, that I hope she's doing well, that I miss her. She never calls back. I send cards on her birthday, on Christmas. I don't know if she even opens them. For the first few years, I told myself she needed time, that she was still grieving Linda, that eventually she'd come around. But as the years went on, I started to realize the truth. She wasn't coming back. And it wasn't because she needed time. It was because there was nothing here for her to come back to. Last month, I was cleaning out the attic. I've been putting it off for years, but the house feels too big now, too full of things I don't need. I found boxes of old clothes, old tax documents, old photographs. And then I found a shoebox with Sarah's name written on it in Linda's handwriting. Inside were things Sarah had made when she was little. Drawings, cards, school projects. I sat down on the floor and started going through them. There was a Mother's Day card she made when she was 8, covered in glitter and stickers, with a long poem about how much she loved Linda. There was a science project from 4th grade, a poster about the solar system with little hand-drawn planets. And then, at the bottom of the box, I found a Father's Day card. It was from when she was 9. On the front, she'd drawn a picture of the two of us holding hands. Inside, in her careful, shaky handwriting, it said, "Dear Dad, I love you so much. I wish we could spend more time together. You're the best dad in the world. Love, Sarah." I sat there on the attic floor and cried. I'm not a man who cries easily. I didn't cry at my own father's funeral. I didn't cry when Linda died, not really. But reading those words from my 9-year-old daughter, I broke. I kept looking through the box. There were more cards, more drawings, more little notes. A letter she wrote when she was 12, asking if I wanted to go to the park with her on Saturday. I don't remember ever getting that letter. Maybe Linda gave it to me and I forgot. Maybe I was too busy. I don't know. But she asked. She kept asking. I found a program from one of her piano recitals. She was 14. I remember going to that one. But I also remember leaving early because I had an early meeting the next morning. I sat in the back so I could slip out without disturbing anyone. I thought I was being considerate. Now I realize I was just making it easier to disappear. I found a photograph from her high school graduation. In the picture, she's standing between me and Linda. Linda has her arm around Sarah, and they're both smiling. I'm standing off to the side, hands in my pockets, looking at the camera like I'm waiting for it to be over. That's how I looked in every family photo, like I was tolerating it, like I had somewhere better to be. Sitting in that attic, surrounded by the evidence of my daughter's childhood, I finally understood. Sarah didn't cut me out of her life because I did something terrible. She cut me out because I was never really in her life to begin with. I was a presence, but not a participant. I was there for the logistics, but not the moments. I showed up, but I never stayed. And after years of trying to connect with a father who wasn't interested in connecting back, she gave up. I thought about all the times she tried, all the times she brought me drawings or asked me to play or invited me to things. And I said I was busy or distracted or tired. I thought about how many times she must have felt invisible, how many times she must have wondered what she did wrong, why her father didn't want to know her. And I thought about how she eventually stopped trying, how she learned that I wasn't someone she could count on, and how by the time I realized I wanted a relationship with her, it was too late. She'd already grieved the father she never had. The worst part is that I can't even blame her. If I were her, I wouldn't talk to me either. People ask me sometimes if I regret working so much. They think that's the lesson here, that I should have worked less and been home more. But it's not that simple. The truth is, even when I was home, I wasn't really there. I'd sit at the dinner table and not listen. I'd be in the same room and not engage. It wasn't about the hours I worked. It was about the fact that even when I had time, I didn't give her my attention. I didn't ask her about her life. I didn't tell her I was proud of her. I didn't hug her or laugh with her or make her feel like she mattered to me. I thought providing was enough. I thought if I kept the lights on and food on the table, I'd done my job. But being a father isn't a job. It's a relationship. And I failed at it. I think about Sarah a lot now. I wonder what her life is like. I wonder if she's happy. I wonder if she has kids of her own, if I'm a grandfather and don't even know it. I wonder if she ever thinks about me, or if I'm just a blank space in her memory, someone she used to live with a long time ago. I know I can't fix this. I know 12 years of silence can't be undone with an apology or a phone call. I know that even if she did answer, I wouldn't know what to say. How do you apologize for a lifetime of absence? How do you tell someone you're sorry for not loving them the way they needed to be loved when they can barely remember a time when you did? But I want to tell you something, because maybe you need to hear it. If you have children, or if you're thinking about having children, or if you have people in your life who love you and need you, don't make the mistake I made. Don't assume that showing up is the same as being present. Don't assume that working hard is the same as caring. Don't assume that people will always be there, waiting for you to finally pay attention, because one day you'll look up and realize that the people you took for granted are gone, and you'll be sitting in an empty house holding a Father's Day card from a daughter who loved you enough to keep trying, even when you gave her every reason to stop. And you'll finally understand what you lost. But by then, it'll be too late. I'm 74 years old, and my daughter hasn't spoken to me in 12 years. And now, I know why. She's not punishing me. She's not holding a grudge. She's just done. She spent her whole childhood reaching for a father who wasn't there. And at some point, she decided to stop reaching. I don't blame her. I just wish I'd understood sooner. If you're lucky enough to have people who love you, don't wait. Don't tell yourself you'll make time later. Don't convince yourself that they know you care. Show them. Be there. Listen to them. See them. Because silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the sound of everything you should have said, and now never will.